It looks like the DHS's attempt at a quote-unquote disinformation board or disinformation unit at the Department of Homeland Security has been canceled for now. Washington Post reporter Taylor Lorenz is reporting that Nina Jankowicz has officially resigned from the Disinformation Governance Board and the DHS, and she's also painting it as this massive cyberbullying campaign from right-wingers is why it got taken down. Taylor Lorenz said, "What Nina Jankowicz has been put through over the past 3 weeks is a horrifying cautionary tale. Legacy institutions, including the government, media organizations, and academic institutions, are largely unprepared for countering these right-wing online attack campaigns." And I will be reading along to Taylor Lorenz's article to see what she's talking about it. So overall, the DHS Disinfo board has been canceled for now. Let's talk about it, and let's also watch some clips of DHS's Mayorkas telling you what he thinks is the truth, which is questionable at best. We're live. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thank you for being here. So, breaking news, the Disinformation Governance Board that the Biden administration was trying to put through the Department of Homeland Security has been paused for now, and the head of that, Nina Jankowicz, has apparently resigned. I'm going to read some of the article from Washington Post. They're painting it as if this is some sort of massive hate campaign, attack campaign, and, right-wingers are just so ruthlessly nasty that, the government's not ready for it. And although I don't like seeing people nasty to each other, I do want to try to paint this pretty accurately. The government got very bold and decided that they would tell you what was and wasn't the truth. And a lot of U.S. citizens were rightly upset about it. And it seems like so far it's failed. I want to play this clip real quick of Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas, because he won't even admit that the Biden administration is responsible for a surge at the border. I think most people with common sense would be like, Trump was a lot more bullish at the border. He talked about consequences. Democrats are a lot more lax at the border. They seem like they enjoy it, and then they pretend like they don't. So this is just what I would call hubris. The hubris of a man that works for Joe Biden, telling the rest of the country that they're going to decide what is true and what's not, when he himself in front of Congress won't even admit that the Biden administration is responsible for a surge in immigration. Here's that clip right here. And this is the guy that's going to put together a governance board to tell you what the truth is, and he can't even tell the truth about something that most people know. Let's watch the clip real quick.
Again, you can sit there and deny that the actions you took, your policies, have sent the signal to the world. And again, end Title 42, it is the final signal that our border is completely open. You even stopped calling it apprehension. Now it's just encounter. You encounter. You're managing the process by making that processing and dispersing so much more efficient.
I would like to finish my answer.
Well, you're not answering the question. You're just dodging it.
No, I've already answered your question, Senator, if I may, that we do not believe the policies of this administration have caused the migration challenge that actually...
Okay, that's you're living in an alternate reality.
That is
So the Department of Homeland Security, which is supposed to take care of the border, that's like their real job. It's not policing the First Amendment like they think it is. He's not even able to admit that the Biden administration is responsible for some of the migration. I mean, if you can't even admit that obvious truth, how in the world are you going to police the rest of us on, what is real and what is not real? Ron Johnson properly tells him you're living in an alternate reality. It's most liberals, I'm not going to say all Democrat voters, but this is like a wedge issue where most Republicans of all ethnic groups, they believe in border security, like America's America, Mexico's Mexico. We love Mexico. However, there is a border. We don't want hundreds of thousands of people coming across illegally. And a lot of Democrats make it wildly easy. They set up lawyers, and they're, perverting the laws of this country to really make it easier and easier for people to come over, while the mainstream media, mostly Democratic media, tells people basically like, if you come there, Trump will be like, don't come, other Democrats will be like, don't come. But they're like, come on over, and we'll tell you that the right wing's so bad for not wanting you here. So it's like an open message to the rest of the world. They're like, please. And then you have the DHS guy who literally will just say, oh no, that's not true. I want to play this clip of Rand Paul again because I think it was so crucial. he just gave such a great minute and said the U.S. government has been responsible for a lot of disinformation, just as Biden and Mayorkas. And, to try to police it is such a joke. Here's that great clip from Ron Paul. I don't know what I said. I might have said his name wrong, but it's worth a watch again before we read more.
Do we have policies? Do we have guardrails? Do we have standards?
But here's the problem. We can't even agree. We can't even agree what disinformation is. You can't even agree that it was disinformation, that the Russians fed information to the Steele dossier. If you can't agree to that, how are we ever going to come to an agreement on what is disinformation so you can police it on social media? I think you've got no idea what disinformation is, and I don't think the government's capable of it. Do you know who the greatest propagator of disinformation in the history of the world is? The U.S. government. Are you familiar with McNamara, the Pentagon Papers? Are you familiar with George W. Bush and the weapons of mass destruction? Are you familiar with Iran-Contra? I mean, think of all the debates and disputes we've had over the last 50 years in our country. We work them out by debating them. We don't work them out by the government being the arbiter. I don't want you guardrails. I want you to have nothing to do with speech. You think we can't determine, speech by traffickers is disinformation? You think the American people are so stupid they need you to tell them what the truth is? You can't even admit what the truth is with the Steele dossier. I don't trust government to figure out what the truth is. Government is largely disseminating disinformation.
The hubris of the Biden, it's like Pinocchio telling you that you have a big nose and that you lie too much. It's like the hubris of this administration to literally try to put together a governance board, and then people have a problem with it. A lot of people speak out and they're like, this is like straight out of 1984, the Ministry of Truth. And then Taylor Lorenz, I'm going to read the article in a second, she's painting it as this big cyberbullying thing. And it's like, listen, as somebody that's probably a lot nicer than a lot of other analysts, I don't like to see people be mean to each other, not Nina Jankowicz, not Taylor Lorenz, but it's like Taylor Lorenz is constantly bullying other people. She's part of the big system. I mean, she's part of Washington Post, one of the establishment news sources. And then it's like, if anybody has a disagreement with the big government spending trillions of our dollars, sending tens of billions of dollars to Ukraine, printing trillions, like this is the big government just growing. And if we're like, hey, maybe you shouldn't get involved in trying to police information, now they cry victim and say, oh my gosh, people are bullying us. It's not like people just randomly thought to bully Nina. And, I feel bad for her because she stepped into a position that sucks. I mean, it's like now you're going from somebody that no one really thinks about to highlight it on every television. I wouldn't envy that for a second. But it's like, it's not like people just thought to be mean to her randomly. The government got too big for its britches and then started to put together a board to really police speech when this administration is one of the least honest administrations we've ever had. I want to show a clip real quick. I didn't want to make this all about immigration, but I just want to show people, it's like, 10 years ago, Chuck Schumer used to take a harder line stance against immigration than Trump. Everybody used to sound like Trump. You wouldn't get elected in America if you didn't sound half like Trump, because most Americans are supposed to care about their country. It's nice to care about the rest of the world. I love the world. I love people of all cultures. But at the same time, it's the same way a California politician is supposed to care about the people of California. He's not Gavin Newsom is not the governor of Idaho. So if he's talking about Idaho, it's like, that's nice, bro, but you're the governor of California. The president of America, the Congress of America, is supposed to serve America first. It doesn't make you a racist or a nationalist just to think that way. It means you have it's like, that's your job. You're not supposed to serve Zelensky and the Ukrainian people. You're supposed to serve America first. Here's a video of Chuck Schumer 10 years ago sounding like Trump. And just to think that the Department of Homeland Security guy, Mayorkas, has the nerve to try to put together a disinformation board while he's up there saying, I don't think the Biden administration's responsible for the surge. He absolutely is responsible for the surge. You're responsible for the surge. Liberal media is responsible for the surge, because we used to take a hardline stance and tell people, don't come to our border if you're not going to follow the law. And now you're basically signaling you don't even call them illegal immigrants. You're like, oh, you have all these little phony names to make it seem like it's not a big deal. Here's Chuck Schumer used to sound like Trump. And you're telling me that the fact that you guys have taken a 180 shift on this topic isn't leading to a bigger surge at the border? Just be honest about it. Be like, we're Democrats. We believe in a lot of people at the border. We don't believe in borders. Everybody should be a citizen or an illegal. I would have more respect for Democrats who said that, because a lot of left-wingers feel that way. They don't believe in borders. They don't care about American citizenship. So at least they're honest about it. They're like, yeah, we don't care about this country. We don't care about the laws. You know, everybody can be a citizen here or not citizen. They're like, just have some respect for yourself and be like, yeah, that's our, not, oh, we don't think that we're responsible for the surge. I mean, your party used to sound like Trump. Take a listen.
People who enter the United States without our permission are illegal aliens, and illegal aliens should not be treated the same as people who entered the U.S. legally.
You cannot obtain legal status or become a citizen of the United States by illegally entering our country. Can't do it.
When we use phrases like undocumented workers, we convey a message to the American people that their government is not serious about combating illegal immigration.
Now they like to use the word undocumented because it's more political. I don't use that word. They're illegal immigrants. They came over illegally. Some are wonderful people and they've been here for a while. They got to go out.
Above all else, the American people want their government to be serious about protecting the public, enforcing the rule of law, and creating a rational system of legal immigration that will proactively fit our needs rather than reactively responding to future waves of illegal immigration.
But we want an immigration policy that's fair, equitable, but that's going to protect our people. What the American people are pleading for is sanity and common sense in our immigration system.
It's unbelievable that they just won't even admit it. So once again, you had DHS Mayorkas. That's how the Democratic Party used to sound. They used to sound like Trump and be like, listen, illegal immigration is illegal immigration. Now you have Chuck Schumer fake crying, acting like it's so racist. What? It's like a bat signal to the rest of the world. Be like, come to the border, you'll get a lawyer, they'll probably let you into California, and they'll treat you better than citizens. And then they have the nerve to say, oh no, we didn't do that. I'm going to read a little bit of the article, and then I want to play this other clip. So here's the article. I'm just going to read it aloud. You're not going to see it, but this is the Taylor Lorenz breaking article. It says, how the Biden administration let right-wing attacks derail its disinformation efforts. On the morning of April 27th, says Taylor Lorenz, the DHS announced the creation of the first Disinformation Governance Board with the stated goal to coordinate countering misinformation related to Homeland Security. The Biden administration tapped Nina Jankowicz, a well-known figure in the field of fighting disinformation and extremism, as the board's executive director. In naming the 33-year-old Jankowicz to run the newly created board, the administration chose someone with an extensive experience in the field of disinformation, which has emerged as an urgent and important issue. The author of the books How to Be a Woman and How to Lose the Information War, her career also featured stints at multiple nonpartisan think tanks and nonprofits, and included work that focused on strengthening the democratic institutions. Within the small community of disinformation researchers, her work was well regarded. But within hours of her news appointments, Jankowicz was thrusted into the spotlight by the very forces she dedicated her career to combating. The board itself and DHS received criticism for both its somewhat ominous name and scant details of the specific mission. But Jankowicz was on the receiving end of the harshest attacks, with her role mischaracterized as she became a primary target of the right-wing internet. She has been subject to an unrelenting barrage of harassment and abuse, while unchecked misrepresentations of her work continue to go viral. Now, just 3 weeks after its announcements, the DHS Governance Board is being paused, according to multiple employees at the DHS, capping a back-and-forth week of decisions that changed during the course of the reporting history. On Monday, DHS decided to shut down the board, according to multiple people with the knowledge by the situation. By Tuesday morning, Jankowicz had drafted a resignation in response. So I'm not going to read the whole article, but basically she's resigned and they're putting the disinformation board on pause. I don't want to spend too much time and make this video too long, but the hubris of somebody telling you you're going to police the truth, especially in politics, because people need to understand when it comes to welfare, it's one of these gray area sort of situations where it's like you want to help people, but you don't want to help too much that you're incentivizing poverty or you're incentivizing, lack of work. So it's this gray area. There is really no yes or no answer when it comes to how much should the government help. It's like, there's libertarians that say not at all. There's communists that say they should control everything. And then there's the average person in the middle that's kind of like, well, I'm kind of liberal here, but I'm kind of conservative. I mean, this is how, like Rand Paul was saying earlier, we've always had debates and conversations, and you have Trump and Biden on the stage, and they talk to each other, and they argue their points, and sometimes it gets petty, but that's how we've always done it in America. It's like, we're going to let the First Amendment, free speech, and people's opinions, perspectives, and philosophy, kind of counter each other, and may the best man win, and people vote for who they like the best. How do you really police this type of stuff? How is a guy that is out there saying that he doesn't think the Biden administration is causing a surge at the border, and, once again, he brought up the Steele dossier, the Hunter Biden laptop. These are things, the lab leak theory with Facebook. These people don't have a track record of being completely honest. They've covered up a lot of true stories that are inconvenient to them, and it just becomes a sort of thing where it's like, how do you really police the truth? It's a bold thing to try to do. I definitely agree that, there is lies on the internet, and it's nice to have the truth, but, the people that are behind the policing are the worst culprits of lying. So, it was always just such a bold move, especially for the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, that has done such an abysmal job keeping our border secure, telling us that it's racist and xenophobic to want, a border that has laws, yet they're sending $40 million to Ukraine and telling us that we need to fight for a border in a foreign country. We invade Somalia, we invade Libya, we invade Syria, we invade Iraq, we invade Afghanistan, and that's totally okay. But if Russia invades Donbass, or Russia invades Mariupol, or however you say the places in Ukraine, even though they have a shared history and literally they used to be part of the same country, that crosses the line. And now, that is a cardinal sin to invade a country. Just not the 15 countries we invaded. That's fine. I think we just invaded Somalia, whatever, but if they invade a country, that's bad. So their border over there is important. We need to give more guns to Ukrainians because Ukrainian citizens need guns, but American citizens who have guns are, that's bad news. Why do you need a machine gun? But if we go to Ukraine, we're trying to hand them out and pay your taxpayer dollars to pay it. So it's like the hypocrisy of these type of people where their job is literally to keep the border secure. That's one of their main jobs. They can't even do that. They're lying about that. And then they think that they have the time and, money to put together a disinformation board and tell you what you can and can't think is absolutely unbelievable. And before I leave, I wanted to play this random clip. It's from Live Action, talking about abortion. And this is my I know it has nothing to do with what I'm talking about, but I will relate it. There's something called the slippery slope fallacy, which means you give somebody an inch, they take a mile, right? And we'd like to think that that's not always true, because it's not always true. But when it comes to a lot of stuff in this country, you have seen the slippery slope with abortion, with LGBT stuff. It's like, oh, we just want this. And you're like, whatever, sure, take that. And then they're like, we just want to take this. Next thing you know, they're like, if your 2-year-old man can't be pregnant, then you're a, transphobe. And it's like, literally some of the craziest stuff that's now considered mainstream left wing. If I would have brought it up 10 years ago, a pregnant man on Calvin Klein, or, biologically born men playing sports, there's literally movies making fun of that concept because it's so ridiculously outlandish that there's a movie called Joanna Man that makes fun of that concept 15 years ago because left wingers and right wingers mutually agreed that that wasn't a normal thing. And now things that were jokes and movie plots are now becoming reality. And we're watching the slippery slope in every facet of life happen further. It's happening with abortion as well. And I understand both sides of the debate. Women should be able to choose up until this month. A life is a life. I get both sides of the debate, but the problem with America, and I'm not just blaming the Democratic Party because I think the Republican Party is largely fraudulent. I mean, people like Ted Cruz complaining about inflation, yet he votes to send $40 billion to his buddy Zelensky in Ukraine. The Republican Party's a joke, but when it comes to adults in the room, I feel like Democrats are no longer even like coming to the table. Like, you say this, they say you said this. You're trying to be like a moderate liberal, they act like you're a Nazi. So it's like there is no communicating with these people because they don't want to draw a line. The slippery slope is real. And I just want to play this clip of how they're now, and this is not like a politician, but this lady's justifying after birth abortion, which is just murder. And it's hard to feel like isn't where they're going with abortion. And it's like, I don't want to seem like I'm exaggerating, but they've done this with every topic. I would be surprised if this wasn't a mainstream stance in 4 years. Just like so many social and, pregnant men and sports things like that were a joke 10 years ago, and you would literally tell a Democrat they'd laugh at you. Now that's their mainstream stance. So take a look at this clip. It's a little disturbing, but it's worth seeing.
Do you believe in abortion after birth? Would you support that?
I believe in whatever the woman wants to choose to do, that's her choice.
At any point of the child's life?
At any point of the lady's life, that's her choice.
To kill another person's body?
It's going to always be her choice.
Even after the baby's born?
It's always her choice.
So if they're 2 years old?
It's always her choice.
I can kill my 2-year-old?
It's a woman's right to choose.
To kill their child at any point?
It's a woman's right to choose.
So this interviewer is trying to explain to this lady like a 2-year-old, and she's like, it's a woman's right to choose. And that's what happens when your mind is just hyped up on these phrases that don't mean anything, and this is my big issue with the Democratic Party. They're like brainwashing people to not think about anything. It's like Ron DeSantis passes this specific bill, right? It's like, don't teach sexuality to little kids. Keep that out of the schools. Let their parents decide to teach it, but we don't need government schools teaching little kids about sexuality and LGBT gender roles and trying to transition them. Keep that out of the schools. Very simple, right? That's his stance, okay? The least you could do on the Democratic side is just tell the truth about it. Be like, okay, Ron DeSantis is trying to keep sexuality out of schools, and here's why I think that's wrong. If that were the debate, I would listen to it, but that's not what the Democrats do. They lie and say, don't say gay. Ron DeSantis is saying, don't say gay. That's not what he's saying. So with the right to choose, it's like the right to choose what? You have the right to choose, if your baby is still a clump of cells, but if it's at late term, then what? After birth? They're literally marching in the streets being like, yeah, you should be able to kill your 2-year-old baby. And I wish I could say I'm just exaggerating, like, oh my God, Anomaly, you're just picking out some fringe person. Every single stance in my head that was once considered fringe is now a mainstream Democratic Party stance. If I were to go back 7 years in the Obama administration and say, can men get pregnant? No Democrat would say yes because it's outlandish. If I were to say, should you be able to make a 2-year-old gay? People would say that's child abuse. This was not popular when gay marriage was but the slippery slope. Now it's like it's becoming normal. So I don't think that this stance that she has is such a fringe stance, because when you're not allowed to draw a line, you try to draw a line and the Democrats just say, oh, you're saying this, or you're saying this, or we're going to police what you say. This is how this all happens. I mean, her stance might seem outlandish now, but you look at some of the legislation they're passing and they just can't draw a line. There is no closing Pandora's box on the left wing anymore. It's like, let's draw the line here, right? I'm pretty libertarian, but we need thou shall not murder. Thou shall not be a terrible neighbor. Thou shall not steal. Things that make the greater good of the community better by enforcing these laws. They don't want to draw any sort of line, and it's not only creepy, but it's beyond that. All right, I'm gonna put a few of these comments on the screen, and then I'm gonna end this over. Appreciate you guys. God bless you so much. Thank you to everybody checking out the hats on God Bless Hats. Patreon.com/RareTalk. Just a few. Bobby said, great video. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Bobby. Edward said, I love the hat. Appreciate it, Edward. It's at dreamrare.com or godblesshats.com. Thank you guys so much for your support. I'm going to end this pretty early, and I'm working on this Elon Musk video if you guys are interested. Elon Musk did a podcast with some venture capitalists, and say what you want about the guy, but he's really been on fire authentically explaining the problem with big tech. And similar to this situation with the Disinformation Board, I'll just say this before I leave. The big problem that they have with Elon Musk, and he explains it very clearly, right? He's one of these people that he's very easy to understand what he's talking about. He wants Twitter to have transparency. So what people don't realize about Facebook, Twitter, there are shadow bans and there are algorithm manipulations on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. And here's the interesting part. We don't even know what they are because their algorithms and what they're doing are not transparent. So what Elon Musk wants to do for Twitter and a lot of social media is let people know if you're shadow banned on Facebook or Twitter, Elon wants to make it public information so you can at least figure out, or smarter people than us that understand coding can figure out, oh, this is how they've coded this website, this is how you're being shadow banned, and this is the moral justification for your shadow ban. Elon wants to make all this stuff transparent, and that's why they're smearing the crap out of him, because they work in the shadows. They can't have transparency. You look at some of these Project Veritas drops and you listen to the quality of people that are trying to censor you. These are stupid, degenerate half-wits who they're just king of the castle, like, oh, you know, these conservatives and these, you know, radical moderates are too stupid to know the truth. We'll tell them how to think and we'll control what they think. We don't want them to think. And it's like, these are not the smartest people. Like, oh, no offense, a lot of these people at big tech, some of them are smart, but a lot of them are just like far left, half-wit, commie, you know, like wannabe dictators like Mao Zedong in a sloppy, you know, sloppy suit. And it's like, just seeing how they're acting, they're so frightened of Elon Musk allowing the First Amendment to thrive. They have shadow banned, they have rigged these websites and algorithms to such a crazy extent, and nobody even can see the coding that goes into the rigging. So Elon's saying, hey, sunlight's the best disinfectant. Let's put the algorithm in a public source, open source, so everybody could see exactly. And that frightens the crap out of Democrats, because you think about the fact that they're losing cultural grip right now and they're losing the next election. They're losing the next election with Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, you know, rigged algorithms, censorship. That's why they're trying to push for a disinformation board. They're like paranoid psychos. They can't censor enough, and it's not working because the truth is the truth. It's like, you can't just censor your way out of this. And I want to say this before I leave. When they say democracy, they don't mean democracy. A real democracy is free elections, free speech. People get to disagree with things like the governance board or the disinformation board. They're so frightened of the people's will. They hate the fact that they proposed this psychotic authoritarian government program, and the people of this country rejected it. Jeff Bezos even rejected it. Elon Musk rejected it. You know, lots of people, not just right-wingers, but lots of common sense people rejected this program, and they hate the fact that you have an open voice. They don't want you to have a voice. They don't want you to have a platform. They don't want you to be able to compete. So when they say democracy, they mean authoritarianism. They're like, oh, free speech is a threat to our democracy. You can't have a democracy without the people's voice. What are you talking about? So if you go over to Ukraine and they say we're saving democracy in Ukraine, that's the type of democracy that they want for America. Zelensky's a dictator. He's banned 11 political parties. There's reports of them potentially seizing property and money from political parties that disagree with them in an election that he was probably going to lose. Apparently, I was listening to Oliver Stone on Lex Friedman's podcast. Listen to that if you want a good podcast. Oliver Stone talked to Putin. He knows a lot more than most people. Oliver Stone was saying that Zelensky ran on this idea of peace with Russia. That's what he sold to the people of Ukraine. He said, I'm going to get along with Russia. We're going to make peace. We're going to make peace. He gets in office. He does the opposite. He bans all the Russian political parties, and now he's a straight up dictator. So when Democrats say we want democracy, what they want is communism, authoritarianism, and a dictatorship like in Ukraine. That's why they're calling that democracy. It's not democracy. Zelensky ran on democracy, and he's a dictator now. You know, he has literally stolen the next election through force. He has banned all of his opposition when he ran on peace with Russia. So listen to the Oliver Stone documentary, but that's the type of pseudo-democracy they want for America. No free speech, no people's interaction, and the weaponization of the government to basically just go after anybody who disagrees with their power source. So God bless you guys. I appreciate you so much. Thank you everybody supporting on Patreon. Even $5 a month helps. Thank you to everybody checking out the hats. And I will be back with that video. It's going to take a while to edit, but it will be well worth it. Appreciate you guys so much. And thanks for everybody sharing these videos as well. That helps.